So you are watching or listening to Strangers in Space, and for the next 10 minutes we're going to be talking about the new Doctor Who spin-off, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Ian.
And you were going to be with Harvey, but Harvey's disappeared. So
yeah, Harvey was just there, just having a sort of mid-afternoon snack. But he's gone now.
For anybody who's interested but can't tell, Harvey is Ian's giant rat.
A giant rabbit? Isn't Harvey an invisible giant rabbit?
Well, if Harvey was invisible, I wouldn't have seen him, so it can't possibly be that.
It's a Jimmy Stewart film, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. So Ian's just nuts.
Well, I think we've established that, but hopefully he might appear as we chat.
It's a possibility.
Just to prove that I'm not insane.
Or to prove that you are. Or maybe to prove that Matt is. Should we stop talking about rabbits and talk about the Doctor Who spin-off? Because we did, this afternoon, come by some information. Somebody wrote in to us and said, look, here's a thing. And so that thing was very definitely worth talking about. And here is, I guess, the thing that was worth talking about and our feelings about what it might mean, this thing. And that is that we think we've discovered the nature of the spin-off that was being talked about in the piece by Nicola Methven in The Mirror last week or about 10 days ago, where a unnamed source talked about the fact that we were going to be seeing Sontarans, Weeping Angels, Sea Devils, along with Daleks and Cybermen. And our speculation was, well, clearly something's on its way, but it can't possibly be all of those things. So my suggestion, incorrectly as it turned out, was that probably one of those things was definitely on the way and the other things were being thought about. But as it turned out, no, because the information that we came by kind of explains how all of those things can be happening at once. And not only that, all of those things might be happening before Ncuti Gatwa takes to the screens with his first series. Because it also looks like several of these episodes are already in the can as we speak anyway, which makes sense of David Tennant's comments about lots more going on that we're not aware about than we can possibly know about behind the doors at Bad Wolf. And it turns out for the last 6 months, I think, they've been shooting an anthology series where there will be a literal monster of the week. An episode about the Sontarans, one about the Weeping Angels, one Daleks, one Cybermen, one about the Silurians and Sea Devils, and presumably more than that. And I guess some of those may form two-parters or whatever. But judging by the way this information sort of came about, and I don't want to speak about it too much, the sort of specificity of it, but judging by the way the information was, this is properly an anthology rather than a themed series with some kind of an arc that will resolve at the end of it. So this is literally completely standalone episodes, presumably anywhere in time or space, involving these various aliens. And my feeling was that this could turn up prior to Ncuti Gatwa's first series as a kind of primer. I think on our last episode, I talked about how I thought the David Tennant specials might work as kind of a primer for a Disney Plus audience about what Doctor Who was about. Well, take the 3 Tennant specials in conjunction with, let's say, 5 or 6 episodes about various monsters and the Ncuti Gatwa Christmas special, and by the time the series itself rolls around, a Disney Plus audience should be well aware of what Doctor Who is and what its capabilities are. So there it is. I've rolled it out. Any thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, it sounds all right. I mean, if it's an anthology series, they're not my favorite thing, because I think single episode stories, like 40-minute stories, aren't enough time these days to get under the skin of a story. I prefer sort of big novelistic stories, even though Doctor Who is essentially an anthology series. It's moved closer and closer to having an ongoing story, which I guess these might, even if it is an anthology series, there might still be connections between the episodes.
For sure.
I mean, when it was suggested that it might be an anthology series, my mind went to the idea that doesn't necessarily preclude a series of Dalek stories or a series of Cyberman stories they do this first, and then maybe they expand in those directions. So it's testing the potential of a spin-off series to start with a carnival of monsters.
Well, fairly simple, like the special for Sarah Jane Adventures, which then became a series, but initially it was just a one-off.
Yeah, all the old. I mean, they did it before. ITV used to do it with sitcoms. That's where Porridge and Open All Hours came from, or BBC.
For sure, yeah.
Open All Hours came from, and I think America does it a fair amount. They sort of do these kind of testing grounds for stories. So that's what I'd be excited about. But again, the main exciting thing, I guess, is it gives the potential not just for RTD and not just for one other voice, but for a writer and a director for each episode. So a variety of voices. I mean, it has the potential. Stephen Moffat potentially comes back for a Weeping Angel story. That's a possibility. So that's exciting.
Ian, what were your thoughts when I sort of told you?
Well, the first place what passes for a brain went was the X-Files, which kind of started out trying to be an anthology series. And I thought there could be a way of having some kind of recurring, like, investigating characters encountering all of the major Doctor Who villains. Now, the problem with that, as you say, is that we'd be traveling through space and time, and it...
Well, and plus, wouldn't that recurring character be the Doctor, and you've just described Doctor Who?
But what if it was something, and it won't be UNIT, because UNIT is really not an idea worth mining at this point. But what if it was some sort of earthbound agency along those lines without the Doctor, and you could see just how big the stakes were and just how dangerous all those various monsters are. Something like that might work.
Imagine, for instance,
like Torchwood.
Yeah, Torchwood has been around for 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
And goes on into the future. So presumably you could have, say it was 6 episodes, 2 are set in the past with one Torchwood team, 2 are set in the present with another Torchwood team, 2 are set in the future with a third Torchwood team, and you see which worked the best, and maybe you run off a Torchwood series from the team you think worked best. I'm just saying that's one way you could do that.
I mean, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't some sort of storyline threading through these episodes.
I wonder, though, if the thinking is, because, and I'm not 100% on this, but don't Disney or Disney Plus have a bit of a thing for sort of doing a series of shorts by way of introductions to various characters, or by way of short stories of various characters, either in the Marvel universe or things like that. Maybe in the sort of Mickey Mouse universe, they'll release a series of shorts. One revolves around Mickey, one Donald, one Minnie, one Goofy, whatever. But what I'm thinking is, I think a thing that Disney do from time to time is a series of shorts where each one will investigate a different character. And I wonder if this is kind of the sort of long form Doctor Who variation on that. So essentially, you've literally got 5 or 6 completely standalone episodes that have absolutely nothing to do with one another, but each one serves to sort of introduce a monster or an aspect of the Doctor Who universe for an audience who aren't versed in all that stuff. And because it's 45 minutes and because they're completely standalone, that kind of, there's sort of a nice easygoing sort of palate cleanser before the main thing arrives when you get Ncuti Gatwa's first series. So that, I think that's a possibility. I've got to say, when I heard this, I was a bit disappointed, because anybody listening to this or watching this who will have seen or heard our episode, you know, from a few days ago about potential spin-offs will know that I, like Matt, favour a longer form story. And I think the sort of idea of a spin-off is set up for that in this universe, because Doctor Who basically, as Matt alluded to, kind of already has the anthology aspect of it covered. So to do completely standalone stories, if this is that, I think would be to sort of lean into an area that lacks a bit of substance. So these stories, by definition, would almost have to be fairly insubstantial, I think.
Well,
I can't.
you run the risk of having a series of 40-minute episodes, 45-minute episodes, where your main feeling as you're watching it is, wouldn't this be good if the Doctor was in it?
Yeah.
Which you didn't necessarily get with Torchwood because it had that sort of ongoing story and it had regular characters.
Precisely, yeah.
But I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, presumably, and kind of Matt alluded to this too, you invent new characters for each of the stories, and it might not just be the monsters and the scenarios that might spin out into full-length series, but it might be the characters rather. It might be a venue for RTD to introduce a load of new characters and see which ones work the best there. And I'm hoping that it really is a bunch of different writers and directors, because I think because this runs the risk of just being Love and Monsters ×6, except without a Jackie character. And so, I don't think Love and Monsters, much as I love Love and Monsters, I don't think it would have worked if there were 6 of them. And I don't think it would have worked if you didn't have the Jackie storyline in it. And this runs the risk of basically being that, I think. So I'm hoping there's vast differences in tone between the episodes.
I have a question for anyone watching who may not realise I'm not actually in the UK, so I don't know half the stuff you guys know. Do we know?
You're really not in the UK?
I'm not in the UK.
But listen to your accent. That's not right.
I know, it's bizarre, isn't
and
it?
You've got an invisible rabbit called Harvey.
He's sitting by
the
work computer, and he's looking very, very
smug,
depressed, I would say.
Oh, really?
I think because he was holding out for a 6-part Weeping Angels. My question is, do we know how long this deal with Disney and Bad Wolf is going on for?
No idea.
So it's open-ended until Disney decide, oh no, this is rubbish.
I would imagine, because I think it's a fairly standard on that side of the pond, is that it's 5 years. The standard on this side seems to be that you gear towards 3 series, you extend if it's going well, but usually both sides of the contract, in other words, the commissioner and the commissionee, will have an opt-out after 1 year if they feel that it didn't go well for them. So if you put those 2 things together, then I'd suggest that everybody's got the chance to walk away after a year, or maybe after 3 years if things are going really badly. But I should imagine that 5 years is the minimum that everybody sets out with the target in mind, with the option, obviously, to extend beyond that if it's going well. And look, the way they're promoting it and the way this is being set up, if they're doing an entire series of sort of anthology style individual episodes for the Disney audience, by the look of it, you'd imagine it's for the Disney audience, because on this side of the pond, Doctor Who's mainstream. We have it on our main television channel, and we all know who these monsters are. So this series doesn't sound like it's primarily intended for us. So if this much money and this much wherewithal is being sunk into it, I can't see anybody turning away from this deal anytime soon. And I think, okay, I'm going to make a little prediction here. I think Disney is bought into Doctor Who, probably with the intention of putting Doctor Who on one of the buttons on the main page, and B, therefore folding in the back catalogue as and when it becomes available. But C, because of the situation with ITVX and BritBox and the iPlayer not being an international thing, I wonder if the BBC monetized the rest of its output by having this as a taster deal for Disney Plus to take on the BBC on an international footing. That probably sounds quite mad as things stand, but the way the streaming market is moving, and with there starting to be casualties of the streaming market now, I think it would be a good idea for the BBC to have something as steady as Disney looking after their product in the international market. And for Disney, how much kudos does it bring them if they can have the British Broadcasting Corporation as part of their global output? So I don't know if that's remotely likely. I don't know if it's even feasible, but I've had this nagging thought in the back of my mind for several months, ever since we heard the rumor that Disney Plus could be about to take on Doctor Who, that some or all of the rest of the BBC might follow. I don't know, it's just the feeling I had.
The back catalogue of brush strokes. The Disney Plus management must be itching to pick up brushstrokes.
It does feel like most of the BBC's output over the last 100 years is off-brand for Disney. But as you say, kudos.
But
Well, no,
then,
Disney have taken on Fox and all
The
sorts of
Walking
other
Dead
things.
is off-brand for Disney.
Well,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
over here, Disney is really just Star Wars, Marvel, and cartoons, and all the content is on something called Hulu. Whereas I think in the UK, it's all lumped together in the one.
Right, yeah.
So,
but you know what I mean? Disney are behind that.
Yeah.
And when I say the back catalogue of the BBC, I'm not really thinking about things as far back as the 80s. I'm really thinking about the noughties and the teens initially, because those are the bits that kind of fit in more with their sort of IP as things stand, surely.
And presumably that it doesn't preclude that in the US, because Disney presumably, do they own Hulu, or do they just have a deal with Hulu?
I believe Hulu is a sort of
So they've got Disney's got lots of sub brands that they just farm the BBC stuff off to. So brushstrokes could go on Hulu because it's hardcore. It's like a vicious.
That would be a dream. Oh,
I know.
Oh,
and it would all be because of you.
But Doctor Who could potentially be on the Disney.
Well, you'd imagine so, because it fits in with Marvel and Star Wars,
if
right?
they've got new Who, it makes sense to have old classic Who as well. Sure.
Yeah, precisely.
Then Blake 7 just.
And also, so to go back to my point, if we're looking at potentially a maybe, let's say, 5-year deal, and Doctor Who's only going to be like 8 episodes a year going forward, so that's hardly
8 in the special by the look of it.
That's not going to touch the sides. So they will be wanting to presumably put 2 or 3 other shows out each year in the way they're doing with Star Wars right now. You've got Andor, you've got Boba Fett, you've got the Mandalorian, and probably Obi-Wan. Suddenly they can start spaffing out 3 or 4 series a year, of which Doctor Who is one. There can be an alien, a series about one particular monster.
Dalek Vichy, you heard it here first.
Yeah. And the comedy Corsair series, where Carl Howman plays a sex-mad time traveller who can't help falling in love.
Don't mock it. Carl Howman follows us on Twitter.
Hey, I'd watch the hell out of that.
Right, any more thoughts before we go? Because this was supposed to be 5 minutes and it's now edging towards 20. Nobody's got any more thoughts.
I want to see the Malice back.
Well, maybe they'll do 5 of these episodes every year with 5 different Doctor Who monsters. And, by the time we're 5 years into that Disney deal, you never know. In fact, maybe they'll start doing
Tings.
Well, they could start doing pair-ups. So we could finally see that Malice meets the Pteroleptals episode.
Oh, no, right. They could do a show called Stranger Patings that would be really huge.
Or probably about yay high.
Yay high.
Because the Patings, they're not very big, are they?
Yeah, but in the zeitgeist. In the zeitgeist.
Okay.
Well, we've wrung out all the information and
and much more besides. And I think that's time to call it a night. Until we do this again, I was JR.
I was Matt.
And I'm still Ian.
And we will speak again soon.